What's going on, guys? Welcome. It's Uncle Mike. Got a little bit of a live stream here, office hours. Just going to move a couple screens around as we get set up. I hope everyone is doing all right. Yeah, all right. I think we're in good shape. Happy Friday. Glad to have the weekend upon us. If you can hear in my voice, getting over a little bit of a cold. A week ago today, it's Friday, a week ago today, Mrs. G came home from a 3-week trip. She was visiting her family in South Africa. Glad to have her see her folks, and her sister, brother-in-law, little nieces, etc. Get to catch up a little bit, get to be a good sister and a good daughter. But at the end of the 3 weeks, a week ago Friday, I picked her up. The flight from Johannesburg to Atlanta, probably at least 15, if not 18 hours. It's a bit of a flight. And in the process of that flight, my lovely wife picked up a pretty nasty cold. So I want to say just a day or two after getting home, she kind of, I won't say collapsed, but the pestilence was upon her. You know, and I thought, I'll be fine. I didn't get worn down. I haven't been on some long trip. I eat pretty healthily. I'm in good shape. I get a little bit of vitamin D in the morning, living here in South Carolina. I didn't give it a second thought. Well, I want to say maybe, Tuesday afternoon, late in the afternoon, I started getting like a really sore throat. And I was like, oh no, I knew what was coming. I've tried to beat this thing just by sleeping, get in bed at 8:30, go to sleep by 9:30. Sadly, the best I can do is sleep till about 4 in the morning, and then I just wake up. So I'm dealing a little bit with this pestilence myself here on a Friday. If I sound kind of funny, if I have to blow my nose multiple times, I do ask for your forgiveness. Your intrepid host here wanted to get on for the stream. I missed last Friday because I had to pick up Miss Lydia from the airport. But today I thought it'd be nice to do a little live stream, just something informal. And it'll probably be quick. I don't even know if we'll have many folks jumping on. But I thought I want to get in this habit of doing a weekly live stream. And so I thought I'd do it. Beautiful today. My goodness, we've had kind of a strange summer. I guess we're past summer now, we're into fall, but here in Charleston, it's still pretty warm. I think today's going to get up into the 80s, low 80s today, if I'm right. This morning in the low 60s, it's sunny, it's mild, there's a little breeze. In fact, I was outside just before this, smoking a pipe. I was getting, I thought, well, I'll smoke for a little bit. I didn't get a chance to finish it. But it's so nice outside. I thought, I'm just going to leave this thing sitting here. And after the live stream, I'll go out and finish it up. If you're joining me, say hello. Say hey in the chat. Would be great to chit-chat a little bit with yous guys. But say hey in the chat if you're just joining me. And I would love to, hear what's going on in your day, what your week was like, what issues are on your mind. We can definitely do this as a bit of an AMA. You can ask me anything. You can call it Stump the Chump, whatever you want to call it. I'm good with that. It's been kind of hard lately. The Charlie Kirk assassination, a few weeks ago, terrible, obviously. And there's been some personal challenges on top of that. I've had a few sleepless nights. I'm not going to lie. This just seems to be the stage of life. Now, it's interesting because on one hand, there are so many things that are wonderful, so many good things happening, so many blessings, so many excellent opportunities, lovely people in our life. There's just so much good, so much good. I'm very grateful for the church we've been going to. When I ran for office coming up on 3 years ago, I ran for office. Was it that long? I think that's right. And it's 2 years ago. I'm terrible with dates. My wife will know. And apologies, I've got a whisker irritating my nose. When I ran for office, one of the things I did is I started visiting all the different churches in our district. It's a city council seat. There were 5 of us running. I was one of 5. I was the only conservative. 4 Democrats for some reason, and it's a Democrat district. But I thought it'd be nice to get to know some of the churches in our district. I didn't get up front and make any speeches. I wasn't glad handing after the service, but I thought, if you're asking the people of this district to vote for you, you should understand part of the district. You should understand the churches. And so we attended a bunch of them. And there was this one church very close to our house, walking distance, and Lutheran church. I didn't grow up Lutheran. I grew up Catholic. Left the Catholic Church as a teenager, became a Protestant, and we went to this Lutheran church. Well, in the meantime, I'd been looking for something more sacramental, something more liturgical. I was kind of toying, had been for years, with the Eastern Orthodox Church. That's really going all in for sacramental and liturgical. But I found Protestantism, in broad strokes, wanting in some ways. Aesthetically, there's a level of dualism that I just, wasn't keen on. There was a lack of sacramentalism. There was almost an abstraction of a lot of the faith, a disembodied aspect, and intellectualizing and systematizing of the faith that I understand to be valuable on some levels, but on other levels I found it to drain it of its life. And so I was kind of in this mode of wanting to find something more sacramental and something more liturgical to help, the liturgical piece to help order and structure our lives in unison with the rest of the church, etc. Anyway, this Lutheran church it really captivated my attention. Very dynamic, very loving community of people, very welcoming, very friendly. The pastor is from Moldova. He grew up under communism in the USSR and found Christ at a certain point, etc. And just a brilliant theologian, brilliant pastor, multiple degrees. I think he's got a medical degree, a medical doctor. I think he's a certified medical doctor, not in the U.S. I think he got a doctorate, a PhD in medieval literature, I believe. I think that's right. And then he got his MDiv in the Lutheran Seminary in St. Louis. I want to say, I could be wrong, but long and short of it, multiple degrees, brilliant guy. What I like about him, sometimes you get academics that are just aloof, thin-skinned, arrogant. They're insecure, and they're trying to prove themselves. They don't like to be threatened. They don't like to be challenged. Nobody likes to be threatened, but they find anyone kind of outside their level or scope, asking questions, kind of like this irritating idiot or a threat, etc. And they'll bat you down. And so what I loved about this fellow was he's intellectually curious. You ask him a question, he gets excited, a question, let's dig into it together. The first time I was there, they were reciting the Nicene Creed. No, that's not the first time. So anyway, long and short of it, visited. I said to my wife, because she was with me, I'm like, I really like this place. And, being the Deep South, we've been going to a Baptist church. We're not Baptist. We'd been there 6 months. And honestly, not an exaggeration, we knew 2 couples, 2 brothers, and there were 2 families. They were brothers' families, and we knew them, and so we were there, and they were lovely to us. I mean, they're just wonderful people. However, other than them, nobody would talk to us. Nobody would say hello. Nothing. I mean, it was remarkable how not friendly, and it wasn't even that people were hostile. Nobody looked at us funny. Nobody gave us dirty looks. They just nothinged us. They just ignored us. Now, I get it. You come into a new place. You don't fit in. People don't know who you are. I understand. It takes time. I get it. But 6 months, And it just got to a point where I was kind of angry, not at them, but I was angry that I'm wasting my life here. I want to be part of a community. I want to have friends. I want to have fellowship. I want to develop relationships with people. And these folks just like weren't even saying hello 6 months in. And I realized like my life is being robbed. It's being stolen. We're going to this church. And for what? For what? Now, you don't go to church just to get for yourself. You go to worship God. But that worship should be corporate. It should be a group effort. And out of that worship should form friendships and relationships. Anyway, so we were on the look. And I said to my wife, when the campaign is done, when I'm done running for office, win or lose, we got to come back to this Lutheran church. I think there's something here. Well, fast forward, we've been going to the church for well over a year now. We joined earlier this year, and it's been phenomenal. I was referring earlier to the pastor's intellectual curiosity, which I really appreciate. Early on, we were in a service, and he was working through the Nicene Creed, teaching it every Sunday and reciting it. And there was a section of the Nicene Creed. Having grown up Catholic, we'd always say the Apostles' Creed. Excuse me. Those are just joining. I have a little bit of a cold. I apologize. But in the Nicene Creed, so in the Apostles' Creed, it says something to the effect of, you're stating what you believe, that Jesus suffered, died, and was buried. And the death of Christ is a very important theological aspect of the faith, because if he didn't die and then rise from the dead, there are all kinds of theological implications or questions, etc. And the Apostles' Creed explicitly states that he died, was buried, and rose again. All right, so there's a very important theological concept, or a few of them packed in there. The Nicene Creed doesn't say that. It just says that he suffered, was buried, and rose again on the third day, or something to that effect. But it never explicitly states that Jesus died. And I was like, that's weird, because a lot of these councils, like the Council of Nicaea, that develop these creeds, you'd have hundreds, I believe, of church fathers arguing for weeks and months at a time to make sure that every little thing is just so. And the death of Christ is such a critical aspect of Christian theology and the subsequent resurrection. I just was kind of questioning. So on my way out the door, I'm like, hey, he doesn't know me from anybody. It's the first time we talked. Hey, great message. Glad to be here. Question for you. How come the Nicene Creed doesn't say that Jesus died? I thought it's pretty important. And he was like, oh, wait a minute. He got all excited. And then he immediately broke out Latin, Greek. He just started digging in right there with me. He pulled one of the elders over, who's since become a dear friend, a good brother, blessing to me, a father, Joe. And they started digging into Scripture. And I just knew at that point I'd found my home. I'm intellectually curious. I like to dig into things. I like to challenge things, not to be hostile. Sometimes I'm hostile. Sometimes I'm a jerk. But I like to dig into things. And if there's something that's a question mark and I bring the question up and I find people that get excited about that question too, that want to discover, that want to dig in and would entertain the question, I'm all in. I'm like, okay, I have found my people. That seems to be rare to me. I've found mainly that when you bring things up, people get irritated, like you're ruffling feathers, you're somehow questioning me, you're assaulting me, it's like this just kind of like irritation or anger over questions or challenging. I will challenge. You should too. Like if there's something that seems, I don't know, not right or doesn't fit or doesn't make sense, why not challenge it? Why not question it? Why not explore it? So I knew that I'd found my home. So all I'm saying is lots to be grateful for, but the season of life has been tough too. It's brought its own challenges, its own heartaches, and I'm sure that's the case for you too. Hey, if you're just joining me, make sure to say hello or hey or whatnot in the chat. You can even type the word whatnot. I'd be happy to hear from you. Let me know you're here. Glad to have you guys join me. I'm so grateful it's Friday. I hope you're doing great. Those just joining, you probably can tell I've got a little bit of a cold. I'm on hopefully the other side of it. I'm getting better. I hope that's the case because we have dinner plans tomorrow night in the evening. We're meeting some new folks, excited to go out. So I need to be healthy by then. But I've had a cold since Tuesday, and I'm a little sniffy, a little runny-nosed right now. So I do apologize. And I'm probably cognitively running at about 85%. We'll give it 85%. It's probably lower than that. But I don't want to admit too much weakness. Y'all might take advantage of me. But yeah, say hey in the chat. Let me know what you guys are up to. Would love to know what questions, thoughts you have. So much going on in the news. I mean, we could talk about so many different things. And I'm only going to run this for a little bit here. I'm not going to go crazy on today's live stream. But I didn't want to miss another week. I missed last week because I had to pick up sweet Lydia from the airport. She got home after a long trip. And so it just didn't work out to be on camera. However, I'm glad to be back here today. I've made some changes, by the way, in my approach to my day. And I wanted to talk about that for a minute. You know, you see a ton of videos online about dopamine addiction and distraction and procrastination, all this stuff. Clearly, we are all living this sense that we should be getting to things that we're not. We have dreams, we have visions, we have things that we want to build, things that we want to accomplish. And yet at the same time, we have this sickening sense that we're not doing what we ought to be doing. This seems to be a common theme in our society, because if you look at the content, if you just kind of look at what's out there and what's popular, there's just tons of this. There's tons of this content that tries to address things like procrastination and distraction and dopamine addiction, social media addiction, and so on. Well, forgive me for half a second here. You know, I struggle from time to time with the same thing. I think that I'm doing better than the average bear. I juggle a lot. I've got a lot on my plate between my consulting work and content creation and writing and some of my other responsibilities on advisory boards and volunteer work, etc. I'm pretty busy. I read a fair amount as well. So I feel like I pack a lot in. Lydia and I are pretty good. Like, we're not TV watchers, so I don't blow a lot of time every night watching television. I gave up alcohol, over 2.5 years ago. So I'm kind of freed up from having a couple drinks and just being like blotto for the rest of the day. By the way, Zakaria Hussein. Hi, Mike. Hey, Zakaria, welcome. Glad to have you along. Where are you from? Let me know where you're logging in from. I'd love to learn more, but welcome. Glad to have you along. But I do pretty good in general. However, I am not as productive as I'd like to be. And specifically, if you look at the Eisenhower matrix, and I won't draw it right now, but you got 4 quadrants. You've got important, not important, urgent, and not urgent. And there's a quadrant where you combine both important and not urgent. And that's the gold. We all get stuck in the urgent work. Everybody's busy answering emails that don't matter, etc. Oh, hold on one second here. Zacharias says, Finland. That is why I started Bujo today. Got tired of app distraction. Tell me about Bujo. I don't know what Bujo or Bujo is. I'd like to know more. But we all live in the urgent, important quadrant. You got important stuff that you got to deal with. You got to pay your bills, and it's urgent. The boss calls, you got to pick up because it's important. It's the boss. But there's a lot of urgent, non-important stuff too that we get stuck in. Just meetings we have to go to that don't really matter, but they're urgent but not important. Maybe client requests, they're a little bit of a waste of time, etc. So we live in the 2 urgent quadrants. The real gold, however, the stuff that builds a lifetime of work, a lifetime of wealth, a lifetime of success, and possibly even a lifetime of fulfillment, is that important but not urgent work. Let's say you want to write a book. And there's nothing urgent about that, unless you're already a published author and your publisher is like, look, we want a new book from you. We're going to pay you $100,000, and we need the first draft by May 13th. Okay, now you got a deadline, you've got urgency. But for the majority of us that are not published, we might dream of writing a book. We might dream of creating a movie or a video essay. We might dream of building maybe something in our backyard, like an office space in our backyard that allows us to read and meditate and write and all these. Like, we have all these dreams, things that we want to do. Maybe you want to travel, and it's important to you to see other parts of the world, but it's not urgent. And so this quadrant of important but not urgent is where the gold is. This is the stuff that if you give it time and you do it, your life can dramatically change for the better. For the better. Even if you fail at the thing you're trying to do, you grow and you learn and discover things that you never would have before. Excuse me. Funny enough, things as simple as reading a book would definitely often fall in that important, not urgent. You know, just reading great literature or reading some book that will expand your mental horizons, teach you something, etc. By the way, Zacharias says that he or she is talking about bullet journaling. Yeah, bullet journals are great. I started with years ago, many years ago, with the Franklin Covey system. I'm a Gen Xer from way back. And Franklin Covey had this system. They were hardbound, like leather-bound, ring binders. And you would do your days to-dos. You would have your, quarterly short-term goals, your long-term goals. The facing page would be for notes, meetings, etc. And there was a whole system. You would plan out your life, plan out your day, your weeks, etc. And the Franklin Covey system was all that. Stephen Covey was behind it. And I think one of the companies I worked for in my 20s promoted this thing. Maybe, I don't remember the deal, but we all had these Franklin Covey binders. I have a buddy still. We keep in touch, but I met this guy, Jim, at work, and Jim was great. He still is great. But, I had a smaller kind of binder, something that was manageable, etc. But Jim, if you were going to have it, you had to have the biggest and the best. I remember he had this massive planner, it just open up on his desk. He had it all mapped out. Jim, very scientific mind, very structured scientific mind. He had this massive Franklin Covey planner. It was like he had to have a vassal to carry it for him wherever he went. But I started with that, and that lasted for a while. These systems, they come and go. Eventually, I bought a business years and years later, and the complexity of my life got to such a point. I wasn't an employee in a corporation anymore. I was running a business, small business, so I was in many ways chief cook and bottle washer. I had many employees, but I was doing a lot. I had my fingers in a lot, and it just was hard to keep track of everything. I wasn't using the Franklin Covey at that point. But I started, I read a book. What did I read? Getting Things Done by, I want to say, David Allen. And it was more of a framework. It was like this framework for, clearing out your mind of all this kind of stuff that bogs you down and distracts you, capturing things in ways that are meaningful, putting together to-do lists and action items and so on. And that was really transformational for me. And then I kind of evolved from the GTD, Getting Things Done, into more of a bullet journal. And now I'm kind of just running an amalgam of all those things. But yeah, bullet journals are pretty cool. I use that methodology, that approach for my day-to-day. Can show you. Oh, I got it right here. So I get these soft covers. They're made by, I'll say, Luctrum. Not sure if you can, this doesn't have autofocus. I'm running a Blackmagic 6K, Pocket 6K, doesn't have autofocus. But essentially, I'll just, open up to a page here. But here's an example of a day. On the left-hand side, I've got a bunch of to-dos. On the right-hand side, I might have Here's one where I had a lot of to-dos on the left-hand side. That was a Friday. But yeah, I'm using more of a bullet journal approach, although I don't adhere strictly to the bullet journal. But these are great. And then I've got a hardcover book for each of my clients, so that when I have client meetings, I can just go back to that and keep track of notes. These are more like meeting notes, thoughts, research, etc. So recently, I feeling like I was also suffering from a lot of this distraction, procrastination that we're talking about, and even social media kind of dopamine. I've gotten rid of. Well, let me back up. Back in early 2016, I want to say I read Cal Newport's Deep Work, and I found that book like really, really transformational. There's just so much richness in deep work, and it came at just such a perfect time in my life. I still was running my agency. I was branching out into other things. I've been exploring podcasting. I was doing like a little bit of consulting on the side, kind of doing it through my agency, but I had some discrete consulting work that I was doing, other work that my team was doing. But I was getting more involved in things like bioethics and the pro-life movement. There were just different things I was involved in, and the Deep Work, the book, Cal's book, and a lot of things that he talked about just is like the perfect time. It just hit home so hard. In August of that year, I shut down my agency, and I was deep ensconced into this deep work thought process. And I'm going to sneeze here. Apologies. Or not. Ugh, this cold. I can't wait to be over it. But I was just convinced this idea that I needed to be engaging in deep work. And so, this is 2016, almost, what, 9 years? Well, it is 9 years, almost 10 years ago. So I dig in a little bit deeper. I'm doing more thinking work. I start consulting. I'm using deep work. Cal's approach, I'll say, I don't want to say framework, but just this idea that you need, uninterrupted hours to go deeper, that you need to get rid of distractions. I did a pretty good job of that. I kind of even to this day, I broke my phone addiction. I started doing things like going for walks without the phone, just so that I didn't have it with me, so that I'm just walking and thinking, mulling over questions, challenges, problems. If I'm sitting, like at an airport, I get to an airport and I'm waiting now for the shuttle to take me to the rental car facility. Maybe I've got 10 minutes, 15 minutes of just standing curbside as I wait. Well, I won't pull out my phone. I won't sit on the shuttle, scrolling through my phone. I'll just sit there. I'll look around. I'll be bored. Part of what Newport argued for is you've got to learn to be bored. It's when your mind works. It gives your mind a chance to work and you're not distracted. That's not the whole secret of the book. But if you haven't read Deep Work, and Newport's done a lot of great work around this kind of stuff, definitely take a look. I would read that book. I bought a case of that book, of Deep Work, and I was just handing it out to people. So that's how much it changed my life. So what I'm talking about is these iterations towards a perfected state, if you will, of creativity and production. Then a number of years ago, I read Ian McGilchrist, The Emissary and His Master, or The Master and His Emissary. Forgive me, I got that backwards, which is part of the argument of his book that we have it backwards. But The Master and His Emissary, which talks about right and left hemispheres of the mind, and how one is big on narrative and context and vision, and the other is more on decomposition, categorization, systems, and so on. And how, as humans, we've allowed potentially the one that's supposed to be in charge is the hemisphere that's more responsible for the bigger picture, for vision, for seeing the whole, for fitting the parts into a cohesive whole, for making sense making. And however, the other side, the technological, systematic, categorizational side that likes to break things down. It likes to take a frog and dissect it into its parts. We've allowed this more scientific side to become the master when it's really supposed to be the emissary. If you have a vision, that's a beautiful creative thing, but it needs to be brought into reality. And so the one side has the vision, the other side is the side that you use to help bring this thing into reality. And they work together, one serving the other towards this greater thing. And I found that compelling. Fast forward a handful of years later, and he had his 2-volume set, his opus, continuing on this theme and going even deeper, called The Matter with Things. The Matter with Things. And I've got that sitting over on my shelf. Read that back in, 2021, 2022 when it came out. I think it cost me $100 to buy it, but I was like, I'm in. Like, I'm all in for this. And so now I'm sitting here and in reading that, like, you really get a sense for how creativity works and just also great. Pardon me. For those just joining, I'm battling a cold. I do apologize, but the show, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, must go on. The show must go on. If you are just joining, make sure to say hey in the chat. We'd love to know you're here, and feel free to throw questions, comments out. We can easy peasy keep this thing nice and casual. So coming out of this, I wrestled, by the way, with McGilchrist's work. I mean, it's fantastic, but then it forced me to sit and think through, like, what is my creative process? Because I would get stuck. I'd have ideas, but then I struggled to bring the ideas into being. I had these great visions, but the vision piece for me is just so natural. Like, I live up, these ideas. Sometimes articulating those ideas clearly is difficult because they take work. The visions that you have, although on some level are full visions, you can get enraptured. I feel like an emotional rush with these moments of vision, these ideas, these ahas that you have. However, the details are not there. You can see this kind of beautiful grand thing. I'm looking up as if there's this imaginary thing. But the details, the structure, the systems, all the stuff that comes together to make that thing real, they don't exist, and you can't see the details. And so there's this struggle, of the person with the vision to say, how do I bring this idea I have into being, into the world? How do I bring it forth? And it's hard. It's a really hard, discouraging, painful process. It's quite painful. And it's not as easy as saying step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. I mean, there are frameworks in a way, but it's not 100% clear on how do you do this. And I was wrestling with this. It's like, I want to do great work. I want to bring things forth that are beautiful, that are substantive, that I can look back and say, I'm proud of my work. And I also knew as I was approaching, the later half of my life, or I shouldn't say approaching, I'm in the latter half of my life, if you can't tell by looking at me. I wanted to make sure that it counted. I wanted to make sure that I did great work. I'm at a stage in life where it's easy to coast. You can sit and say, hey, I made it. I'm in my 50s. I'm really good. My consulting practice, I make great money. I could make more if I wanted to, just go get more clients. This is like the work. I find it easy because I've invested all these years. I get it. You can kind of coast. You can phone it in a little bit if you want to at this stage of life. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I will not respect myself if I take it easy, if I just coast in to a close. I want to do great work. I want to be able to ring that bell before I'm done here. I want to realize my potential. I don't just want to enjoy the benefits of my hard work. I want to do something great. Now, whether that thing great is noted, I'm not talking about fame or notoriety, but I want to be able to look at my work and go, I'm really proud of that work. I'm proud of it. Like, it's fulfilling, satisfying. And so as I came out of reading McGilchrist, And I started amassing other tools, things like Zettelkasten, etc., ways of capturing and making notes from my readings so that I could create almost like a lattice work of thinking that I could refer back to. Doing some writing, you go back to things that you captured before, bring these ideas together. Things like synthesis, connecting ideas that don't obviously connect, but when you make the connection, it's something beautiful, it's an insight. I wanted to do more of that work, and I looked coming out of the McGilchrist reading and saying, okay, I've got to figure out my process for creation because I have all these ideas, but my idea to fruit, if you will, being fruitful ratio, it's not acceptable. I'm not putting out enough, and the content I'm putting out doesn't live up to my vision. So it's been an ongoing wrestle, and it's good. It's a good process. And I've produced some really amazing things that I'm proud of. The New Privateer being one of them. That publication, just stunning. Very proud of that. And looking forward to doing more with it in the future, hopefully. But I still was feeling like I don't have this 100% dialed in. So one of the things that became obvious to me is assessing how I was spending my time. And, you see the computer behind me. That's where I tend to work. It's where I sit and do my client work and writing and so on. Right over here on this side, you've got a little writing desk that overlooks the front of our house. And I'll sit and, work on notes and write there as well when I write by hand. But you get in ruts, in your office. I don't know about you, but you get into ruts. And, I maybe jump into my office and fire up the computer and, you start goofing around the computer, you're answering some emails, you start watching some videos, maybe you check out some memes, maybe you're scrolling social media, next thing you know, it's 9, 10 o'clock, I got a couple appointments, Zoom calls. I get to 2, 3 in the afternoon and I'm like, I'm not sure what I've done today. And you start stacking up days like that. It's one thing to have a day or two like that. When you start stacking days up like that, especially when you're at my age, you start to realize like this thing is slipping through my fingers. It makes you feel sick. At least it did for me. And I realized I need to make maybe a final change. I understand the creative process. I understand how I take a vision, make it something real. I've done this. I understand, the important, not urgent quadrant. I know what I'm trying to do here. I have a sense for what my life's work can and should be about. I need to be more disciplined around how I'm spending my most valuable asset, which is time. I cannot get more time. I can get more money. Heck, I could even get hair implants if I wanted them, if I want to take a trip. If you hear me taking a trip to Turkey, I'm going on vacation, going to Turkey, and I come back with a full head of hair, you'll know, which I have no interest in doing. I'm fine with how God made me. But you get to a point, I was getting to a point where I realized the only thing that I've yet to figure out, I have frameworks, processes, I have the mental horsepower, I have tools and a number of habits, but I don't have a good handle on my time. I'm frittering away time. This is what happens to all of us. Our attention is constantly being taken from us. And so what I did is I made a few decisions. I'm going to share them with you right now. So if you're joining, don't go, because this is the good part. Here's what I did. I'm going to tell you what the result was. Number one, I decided I'm going to start getting up earlier, which means I had to go to sleep a little earlier. I need to get up between 5 and 6 in the morning, get my day started, make my coffee. So I get up between 5 and 6, make my coffee. This is what I do. And as I'm drinking coffee, I'm reading. Now, usually first thing in the morning, I'm reading periodicals. I subscribe to a few periodicals. One of my favorites is The New Criterion, which is a conservative cultural critique, been around since the 80s. So I might read a piece in The New Criterion while I have my coffee. It just lets my mind kind of get going, just kind of get woke up. I covenanted that I will not, from when I wake up until 3 in the afternoon, until 3, consume. Oh, hold on one second. Hold on. I won't. Let me finish this. I'm going to answer you in just a second, Zachariah. I will not consume any digital content. Now, what I mean by that, I don't mean that I don't look at my email until 3 in the afternoon. What I mean by that is I'm not looking at Instagram, which I don't use, or social media, Twitter. I'm not watching YouTube videos. I'm not sitting consuming anything. I'm not playing any online games. Not that I do that a lot, but the point being, I'm not doing any consumption pleasure kind of content until 3 in the afternoon. So between 5 and 6 in the morning, I'm up and I'm having my coffee and I'm reading something of substance, scripture, the New Criterion, etc. But I'm not digging into, academic work. Then sometime between 6 and 7, I'm transitioning over. And from that period till 9 in the morning, I'm writing. I write for at least 2 hours every morning. Now, what I mean by that, it doesn't mean that I'm like on the keyboard for 2 hours. Maybe I'm working on a piece, an essay or an article. Right now, I'm working on a piece about first principles thinking. Part of that writing process is research. So from 6:30, 7 in the morning until 9, I'm working on that piece. I'm doing research. I'm making notes. I'm making outlines. I'm writing rough drafts, or I'm at least capturing, I'm exploring an idea. Maybe there's an idea within first principles thinking or a side concept. I might write 400 or 500 words just to kind of unpack my thinking on that thing. That may or may not show up in the final piece. But every morning for at least 2 hours, I'm writing. I'm working on my writing. That could be an email blast that's going to go out in a few days. That can be an essay. That could be an ebook. That could be a white paper. Anything of substance, I'm working on writing until 9 in the morning. From 9 a.m. till 10, I get to take a deep breath. I get to get a shower, maybe eat something, chit-chat with my missus for a few minutes. And then from 10 o'clock on, I'm digging into whatever work is necessary. And I don't have that structured, but from 10 till 3, because I'm still not looking at social media, I'm not sitting consuming YouTube videos, etc. I'm working on client work, I'm taking meetings, I'm working on note-taking. And Zachariah asks, are you still doing Zettelkasten? I absolutely am. I absolutely am. In fact, if you see right behind me, this thing right here, that black box, that's my Zettelkasten. And if you see all those stacks of white notes here, right here, those are tons of notes from, it's overflowing. I have to figure out my storage system. But yeah, I work on my Zettelkasten. So I do note, as I'm reading, I'm taking notes. I'm making notes. So between 10 and 3, making notes, taking client meetings, working on client work, working on other, just work-related stuff. If I've got time, I might say, hey, I've got a little gap here. I might keep writing, because when you write for a couple hours, you kind of get some motivation. You're like, oh, I want to get back on that. And you can have more than one project going at any given time. Come 3 o'clock, at that point, if I want to catch up on the news, if I want to check out YouTube, if I want to, whatever, then I'll do that. Now, what I've found, which is really interesting, when I stay focused throughout the day and I don't look at social media and I'm not watching hours of videos, what ends up happening is come 3 o'clock, I'm kind of like, I could take it or leave it. I'll watch 2 or 3 videos. There might be something that catches my eye. I might be busy doing some research or something, so I go, oh, let me take a look and watch this video. But really, I don't care that much. I'm going to sneeze. Oh, this is just terrible. So because I've denied myself all day, it's much easier when I'm free to not waste much time on it, which is cool. And then, from 3 o'clock, I'm still doing stuff. I might have meetings. I could still work on client work, etc. The other thing that I didn't mention in there is, and I haven't been recording much lately, but also within that 10 to 3 a.m. would be things like recording videos, doing some editing, although I would typically push my editing off to the evening when I'm a little bit more laid back. And there's one final important piece to this, and that's bedtime. So when I get into bed, whatever time that is, I need to be able to get up in the morning, but when I get into bed, I do not bring electronics into bed. I'm not watching Netflix movies. I'm not watching YouTube videos. I'm not scrolling Tumblr. I'm getting in bed. And what I do when I'm in bed is typically I chit-chat with the missus for a few minutes and I read. And that's when I'm digging in. So usually I'm reading 3 times a day. I'm reading some type of periodical first thing in the morning. I'm typically somewhere in there taking a break between 10 and 3. And I've got 2 books usually going at a time. One book will be literature. So for instance, right now I'm reading Dante's Divine Comedy. I'm in the thick of the final of the 3 books, Paradiso. And then so there's a piece of literature. And then I'm reading some type of business book. Right now I'm reading Systems Thinking by Donella Meadows. Really interesting book. And that's more for my growth, my understanding, etc. So I'm usually running 2 books at a time. One will be literature, one will be academic, informational, nonfiction, etc. And that's my day. So because I'm going to bed and I'm not watching anything, and I'm reading, I'm taking notes while I read, I'm going to sleep, and I have to tell you, it has been transformational. It has been a multi-year process to figure all this stuff out and then get to a place where I can structure and order my behavior, my time, and my activities, my life around my goal, which is to do great work. So that's it in a nutshell. Nothing perfect. Life is a I'll say never-ending pursuit. At some point it does end, but while we're on this earth, we have a never-ending pursuit of perfection, both in our hearts, in our souls, in our minds, in our bodies. Sadly, time works very hard against that embodied pursuit. But this process and this approach to be able to do my best work possible, very happy with it. And I think there's room for modification, but it's producing some phenomenal results. I'm very excited about the potential. And I think for my YouTube channel as well, it is putting me in a position very soon to be able to create the kind of content that I want to create with the kind of frequency that I want to create. I've really struggled, and especially with everything else I juggle. And I love this. I love this work. So that's that. I appreciate you all being with me. And Zachariah, thank you for being with me. And thank you for your comments. I'll stick around if you've got some questions before I wrap up the stream. But if you've got questions or you're kind of curious, have me unpack certain aspects, or if you'd like to share, what you're doing, just say something in the chat. But I'll kind of stick around for a little bit here. And we can talk a bit and unpack it together. What has been your approach to creativity? Do you struggle to take a vision? Do you have visions? Do you have ideas? Do you have dreams of things that you struggle to make them real? And what's been your approach? What seems to be the biggest challenge? What seems to work for you? I'd love to know. I'm going to just take a sip of water, blow my nose, and give you a moment, because a little bit of a lag here, to respond to some of those questions. I'd love to hear from you. Oh, don't go away. Having a cold and live streaming does not make for great radio, ladies and gentlemen. But the good thing is, when I ran my business, I used to have employees. I had great employees, a couple that weren't great, but majority of my employees were phenomenal people, just wonderful people. And the ones that weren't wonderful, they just weren't a good fit for my business. I wish them the best. However, one of the things that was post-COVID, we all kind of know this, I think, but pre-COVID, I'd have certain people that just thought, just very old school, like, it's better to have a perfect attendance than anything else. So if you're sick, don't stay home. You got to come into the office, because that shows, perfect attendance. That's what counts. And I'm like, look, we're 15 people at this business. You come in here sick. God bless you. I appreciate the sacrifice. I really do. But what you're going to do is you're going to take us all out. You're going to get us all sick, which is going to cost us time and money, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, please, I'm begging you, if you're sick, stay home. Now, post-COVID, most people, you would think no, although it's amazing to me, people don't get it. I remember we had just 2-3 years ago, COVID's all behind us. We're all aware of how bad it was, et cetera, and how, virulent and how sick you can get and blah, blah, blah. Thanksgiving dinner. And we invite this guy over and, invited a handful of people over. This guy shows up and he's clearly sick. Like he's hacking, he's sneezing. His color is terrible. He looks like he's dead. I'm like, bud, are you okay? He's like, no, I'm fine. He was like a, nice guy. I like him. But, maybe a 40-year-old bachelor kind of guy. Formerly married, you know what I'm saying? But just single guy. So he's sitting there across the table from me. And didn't I end up with COVID a couple days later? I mean, I knew it too. We're sitting across the table and I'm like, this guy, like, he did not want to be alone. And God bless him for that. But this is going to cost me dearly. And it did. I got sick. But typically people know. Zachariah says, I struggle with social media distraction and news anxiety. But yeah, that anxiety is a thing. I heard a video by Anti-Fragile author about reading news of last year and now only read newspapers in library. My anxiety reduced. Boy, that's a great point, Zachariah. Let me tell you something. I don't follow the news. I mean, I know what's going on. You kind of know. I read a book years ago. It was written, I think, in the 50s, maybe the 60s. I can't remember. I'm going to draw a blank. But long and short of it, the author talked about this concept of pseudo-news. Pseudo-news, like fake news. And we talk about fake news now like, oh, they're lying to us. His idea was a little bit more nuanced, which is, in the old days, news was news, meaning there was an earthquake in San Francisco. That was a real thing. There was a war in Zambia. Real thing. There's a drought in Lebanon. Real thing. Like that's a news story. There's something happening in the world that's real. Pseudo news is this kind of news machine that just makes up its own news. And what he meant by that is, let's say, for instance, a famous military general is coming to your city. That's kind of a news story. But the PR people create a whole parade. They want to do this big event. And so what happens is the TV cameras are there. There's a parade. The general goes down the street. They broadcast this. We tend to think that's a news story. You don't want to miss it. It's an event. I don't want to miss it. But it's pseudo news. It's something of no importance. And then on top of that, they're broadcasting it and commentators are telling you what they think, and they're talking about different political situations that the general is involved in. And then later there's a panel discussion of pundits that'll tell you why the general's good and why he's bad and why the president should do this. And off of one event, a general coming to town to give a talk, let's say, the kind of media system generates all this pseudo news, these kind of events that are truly newsworthy, but then we don't want to miss out on because they're being broadcast and so on. So I'm with you, and I am anxiety-free too. People, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? Now, clearly, sometimes something happens and I don't hear about it right away. Charlie Kirk got shot, and I heard about it maybe an hour later than most people. Did that change my life? No, I've been just as upset about it, just as sickened by it. etc. It's impacted me just fine. But the fact that I wasn't constantly watching the news, I mean, I have a sound mind. I don't live in fear. And I'm relieved of that anxiety. So I'm with you. Congratulations. I think that's huge. I mean, it just frees up so much of your mind and your soul to focus on what's important. And the fact of the matter is, if something happens that you need to know about, you're going to find out about it. It's not like you're living in a cave. You're just not giving the news stream your attention. You're choosing to attend to other things of your own volition versus being kind of like trapped and fearful of looking away. And then you're being fed all this negativity, which just creates anxiety. So, congratulations. I think that's a huge step. It's a step I took as well years ago. And I've had to keep making that decision because you get sucked into social media feeds like X. For a while, I was using Mastodon quite a bit. I loved it. But I was getting sucked in again to that kind of feed of just information. A lot of it pseudo news, not necessarily important. A lot of it conspiracy stuff, and and it's like you just get all this anxiety. It's like I don't need it. I broke free. A lot of people get hurt. Hey, you're leaving us because there's a kind of a community. It's like you're rejecting us. Your leaving is criticizing. You're saying you're not going to do this anymore. You're criticizing that we do it, but you have to have courage because at the end of the day, all you have is your time and your attention, and popular media makes its billions off of stealing your time and your attention, and it just creates anxiety. So good for you. I think that's awesome. Folks, we're almost to 1 p.m. Should probably wrap things up. I'm very grateful for your time. Thank you for being with me. I hope this was inspirational. Here we are spending an hour together, and I'm saying I'm trying to break free of content and social media. I give you complete permission to totally ignore me if you need to so that you can go create something. However, I hope by sharing the journey that I've been on, some of the decisions I've made, and the ways that these things are kind of playing out for me, just sharing my experience, that it helps you as well in your journey. You're created by God to do and to be and to have to do great things in this world and to glorify Him. And whether you believe in God or not, I want you to be free to do your best work. I want you to look and be satisfied with what you've accomplished, with what has been given to you, both in who you are and the resources at hand. So hopefully this was useful. Guys, I love each and every one of you. Do me a favor, like and subscribe if you haven't, and leave a comment down below. All right? And I'll catch you all in the next video. Cheers.